Hi, my name is Mike Baio with Banger. In today's session, we're going to talk about Sage Intacct's construction payroll module and the flexibility in setting up garnishments. With pay modifiers, you're going to have a multi-tiered approach where you can establish criteria inside those pay modifiers without using any formulas in the system. Let's dive in. The scenario we're going to be working on today is something like this. We need to set up a garnishment for Robert Jones. It's 15% of his disposable income, or something called available funds, but it's not until after those available funds are greater than 220, in excess of $220. And this is a pretty common setup as far as garnishment goes. So what will our available funds be? They're going to be whatever there is gross wages are, less all of the applicable taxes that need to be paid. With one caveat is that he also has a child support deduction set up, and that child support needs to come out first before the garnishment. And again, it's pretty typical what we see. Sometimes there's a combination of the two. So I just wanted to have that visually out there, and we'll use that as a guide. So we'll start off by going into payroll inside Sage Intacct. And the first thing we need to do is make sure we have our garnishment pay modifier set up in the system. So we'll go into payroll setup, system pay modifiers. You will notice some other garnishment ones set up already. I'm going to go set up a fresh one so you can see it and follow along. So I'm going to create a new pay modifier. And I'm going to come into here and I'm going to just use an abbreviation of GARN so we know that's the one we're working for. We're going to need an effective date. We'll just use 01/2023. Oops, try that again. And it's going to be a deduction, and it's going to be an amount based because we're going to use a percentage. And you'll notice down here you have a basis detail. So what we can do is you can do this two ways. You can fill this out here with the specific calculations, or you can leave them blank and fill it out in the employee file if you're going to use this garnishment for multiple employees, and you can also override. So what we'll do is we'll fill it out right here. So going back to our formula that we pulled up on the Word doc a second ago, it's 15%. There's a max per period and a max percentage of basis. Now, this is your typical basis deduction here. Now, we're not doing it off of a typical basis. We're going down to available funds here. So the only thing we need in for the basis right now is the contribution type of time card salary earnings, which is gross pay, which comes in as default. So now we're going to go down into another section here called available funds, and that's going to be our disposable income area. Now, when you're going through and setting these up, be sure to put your mouse over these little information circles here because they will give you a nice explanation of what you're supposed to do here. Use these fields to set the disposable net pay, typically used in cases of garnishments or taxes. Exactly what we're going to do here. So we're going to come in here and say max percent of the available funds. So according to our scenario, it's 15% of the disposable income. So there's a field for that. And there's also a field for available funds in excess of. So what we said earlier was it only starts calculating after $220 of available funds. And you can see here's another example. They use 300 for their example here. So we're going to say available funds in excess of $220. Okay. So now you'll notice under available funds, there's some more setup and it's indented. That's kind of how you know you got to keep going here. So we need a definition. We need to define what is available funds. So like we said, in our template here, available funds equals our gross wages and less our taxes. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll click add. We'll add time card salary earnings, so it's gross wages. We'll click the plus button here. And now what we'll need to do is select employee taxes that come out first. Okay, so we can select employee taxes. And now here's a list of all your taxes that are set up in the system. And you could best fit, or you can go through the list. If I type in FICA, we'll just go through it here. Sometimes what's helpful is what I did is in the employee file, I took a screenshot of what taxes that employee already had set up in their system. So I knew exactly which taxes to take out. And so what I'm doing here is I can just come into here and say Medicare, Oregon state income tax. This is an employee working in Oregon. And there's another Oregon withholding here called WBF. And then don't forget federal income tax. Okay. So that's going to say take the wages less the tax amount, and that's going to give his available funds in the system. Now, one of the other things we noticed is the system says, well, okay, before you take the garnishment out, we need to make sure child support is paid after available funds. Okay. So what we can do here is there's an adjusted by column. And again, a great explanation of what you need to do here. No formulas needed. You just come down step by step through. So in this scenario, again, I went and looked at the employee pay setup. And actually what we can do is while we're in the screen, we can right mouse click, we can click duplicate, and let's pull up that employee. So there's nothing wrong with having multiple tabs open here. It's very nice, especially in Intacct and when you're going through some employee setup. So we can actually have Robert Jones his setup right here while we're going back and forth, or if you have two screens, even better. So in this case, I can see here pay modifiers. Robert Jones does have a child support assigned to him in the system. So you want to note this identifier here, and it's $150. Okay. So what we want to say is we want to adjust this available funds by the child support. So now I can say this is a pay modifier, and I can hit best fit it child. So we want to adjust it by the child support. Okay. So we don't have any reporting or compliance information. So again, to recap, we define an identifier. It's an amount based. We're going to do it off of available funds. So it's 15% of available funds after 220 of available funds. So for example, if after taxes and child support, the net pay for this employee is $200, it's not going to give them this garnishment. Okay. So if it's 200 and, well, let's keep moving from there. So that's the setup there. So the setup is good. You can click save. And the pay modifier is created there as well. Now, so far, if you guys are liking this live stream, please click like, comment, and subscribe to our channel as well. That'd be great. So while we keep going here now, if you're familiar with setting up payroll, you also need to make sure that if you set up a new pay modifier, actually anything new in the system, you make sure it's set up in the journal entry mappings for your general ledger posting. So in this case, it's a project-related employee. Depending on your journal entry mappings, they might look different here based on how you have them set up. The one that I have any employee deductions in is something called project benefits. So I'm going to go into my journal entry mapping. You notice the child support is already set up there. We're going to come in and add the new one we just created, which was our GARN. So there's that GARN one. And we're going to add our journal entry. No, we're going to have, so you may need to set up a new GL account if you want to track your payable separately for child support and garnishment. I have one set up here called Child Support and Garnishments 2070. It's going to be based on check date, and that is going to be the credit side, and I want to track it by employee. So I'll turn on the employee. And then the other side is going to be whatever account you're using for your net pay account for your accrual. In my case, I'm using accrued payroll liability, and that'll be my debit side, which is going to reduce the net pay for the employee. And I also like to track the employee here as well. So you just want to make sure that journal entry mapping is set up for you. Click Save. Click OK. And so now we have that journal entry mapping set up. Last thing we need to do now is go and set it up in the employee file. Since we already have the employee file over here, I am going to refresh the screen just in case it didn't read the new list. Okay. And then I have Robert Jones here. And if I go over to my pay modifier tab, I can see that my GARN is not assigned yet. So I'm going to go find it down the list. There's the GARN one. I click it. And it's going to pre-fill in all the information that we already set up. And the only thing you really want to make sure is your effective date. It does pre-fill it to today's date. So if you wanted to start this earlier in the system, I like to just put it in the beginning of the year or whenever it does. Maybe it's not effective until next month and you want to set it up ahead of time. This is a great tool where you can put it in and make it effective for September and get it set up ahead of time and not worry about it calculating. Okay. So these effective dates are a great tool. So it's going to pre-fill all of this information in from the setup. I can override any of it if it's unique for this employee. So maybe you have a second employee that it's 20% of available funds, or the in excess is different. You can make those changes here, but you'll notice there's my time card earnings, my taxes, and then so it's all pre-fills for you. So it's pretty nice. And I'll just click Save. And then click OK. Okay. Now, one thing to consider is if you look down here in the bottom, this is off of time card earnings, which are going to be based on all your hours types, your regular, your OT, any hour type that you have set up in the system. If the employee by chance was getting some other type of reimbursement pay in Sage Intacct, you want to make sure you include that in here as well. So for example, you'll notice, and this employee doesn't have any additional pays set up, but maybe there is a cell phone reimbursement or a per diem, or an additional pay that they get automatically in their system that isn't a hours type. You just want to do the same thing that we did with the available funds. You just add another line, not here, it's already, I'd have to override it. But in that setup of it, you'd click add here and you'd add the reimbursement pay in here as well to make that included in the available funds. So it's a big change from former users of like a Sage 300 CRE to Timberline, where you'd have to make these complex formulas to include all of these different types of pays. Well, now you just have to list them, link them on the list here, and they will take effect by it. So that employee is set up. We're going to go and make sure it's saved. It is. And we'll click back. And then we'll go, let's go process some pay and see how it looks. But it was that simple to set it up. So I already have some time in for that employee. So if we go into payroll, all time cards, take a look at my pay group, which is my hourly pay. And I have some time in there for the week ending the 26th. Click view timesheets. You'll notice that, maybe not. Oh, I'm sorry, the 19th. I picked the wrong week. So you'll notice that Robert Jones has 40 hours coded to his time for this week already. 8 hours each day. So I'm just going to take it through the normal process. I'm going to approve the time. And then I'm going to take it over to payroll checks. And I'm going to, the first time, if you recall, first time you're processing payroll, you'll click generate checks. And I'm going to pick weekly. And I don't have to range the employee because it's the only employee that has time in there. And I'm going to say not to include salary employees. Make sure you pick the right period end date because we're working ahead here. I'm going to pick the 19th. And I'm going to click generate checks. One check is generated. It has the earnings amount, the net pay, and the company amount in the system. Okay, so now we can drill down and take a look and see what happened in this calculation. So if we click on Robert Jones, we'll notice there's the child support, $150. And you'll see the garnishment here, but you'll notice it's 0. So let's see what's going on. If I take a look at my little calculation that I did beforehand here, his gross wages were 1,160 less the tax total, which is all of these right here, which is 209.86, gives him available funds of 950. So if we take the 950 times the 15%, garnishment should be 142.52. But don't forget, child support gets taken out first, so it's less child 150, and the 150 here is going to be less than oh, and actually I didn't even include the 220, so I actually made a mistake in my calculation because it's in excess of 220, so it's actually 950 minus 220, which would be the available. So in a nutshell, basically it gave him a zero garnishment because he doesn't have enough available funds in the system. So if we made some changes here, and let's go into this pay ID, and just for ease of use here, I'm going to come into here and edit it, and let's make the hourly rate $50 just to give him some more money. And let's do that down over here. We'll give him $50, save. And let's do one more. What the heck, let's give him 60 here. Okay, so now you'll notice the garnishment calculated at 49.23 because we upped it a little bit more. So what's really nice, if you also notice, when you're in here editing this check record, the reprocessing, recalculating the check happens simultaneously. So there's the garnishment based on the formula that it'll take out for this check. I'll click save, and that would return it back to the screen, and you're good to go, and you can proceed from there. So basically, that's pretty much how to set up a garnishment in Sage Intacct Construction Payroll module. It's very flexible. There's going to be different scenarios you're going to run through, but chances are you're going to be able to fit it in based on the pay modifier flexibility in the system. So again, please comment and like and subscribe, and look forward to talking with you again soon. Thank you.